The morning sun streamed through the large glass windows of the cozy downtown café, casting a golden glow on the polished wooden tables and the faintly scuffed checkered floor. The hum of conversation blended with the soft clatter of cups and saucers, creating a symphony of ordinary life. Amidst this bustling scene was Sarah, a waitress in her mid-30s with deep auburn hair pinned into a practical bun. Her uniform, crisp but slightly worn, hinted at years of early mornings and double shifts. Today, however, was different. Sarah couldn't shake the unease that had settled in her chest, a quiet tension that made her glance at the clock more often than usual. Her co-workers buzzed about the unusual energy in the cafe that morning, but Sarah kept to herself, focusing on the tray of orders she balanced with practiced ease. Behind the counter, the radio crackled faintly with the morning news, snippets of a speech from a prominent figure cutting through the white noise. Sarah caught a phrase, "Hope is a choice," and paused briefly, her brow furrowing as though the words had struck a chord. Outside, a black SUV pulled up, its tinted windows gleaming under the sunlight. Sarah had no idea her life, and the cafe, was about to change forever. Sarah moved swiftly between tables, her smile polite but strained. She was known for her efficiency and warmth, yet those closest to her, like Marco, the head barista, could see the cracks beneath the surface. "You okay, Sarah?" Marco asked as she reached for the coffee pot. His tone was casual, but his eyes carried concern. "Yeah, just one of those days," Sarah replied, forcing a reassuring smile. But the truth was she wasn't fine. Bills were piling up, her daughter's school fees loomed large, and the dreams she once had of becoming a chef felt more like a distant memory than a possibility. As she refilled a customer's cup, Sarah overheard snippets of conversations. Politics, inflation, and a name whispered with reverence. Barack Obama. The cafe seemed abuzz with the rumor that someone important might visit today. She dismissed it with a quiet laugh. This place wasn't exactly a hotspot for celebrities. Her routine was interrupted when a group of teens burst through the door, laughing loudly and bringing in a gust of cold air. One of them bumped into a table, spilling a customer's coffee. Apologizing profusely, Sarah quickly cleaned up the mess, her composure masking the frustration brewing inside her. She couldn't help but glance at the door every few minutes, a strange mix of anxiety and curiosity stirring within her. Something was coming, she could feel it, though she couldn't say why. As Sarah delivered a plate of pancakes to a young boy and his mother, the door swung open again. This time, the cafe fell silent. Heads turned in unison as a tall, familiar figure stepped inside. Sarah's breath hitched. The man standing at the threshold was none other than Barack Obama. The cafe buzzed with hushed murmurs, disbelief rippling through the room like a wave. Sarah froze, the plate in her hand trembling slightly. She set it down on the counter, taking a deep breath to steady herself. Barack Obama smiled warmly at the room before making his way to an empty table near the window. Sarah's heart raced as Marco nudged her. "You're up," he whispered, a playful grin on his face. "No way," Sarah replied under her breath. But Marco was already heading back to the espresso machine, leaving her no choice. Summoning every ounce of composure, Sarah approached the table with her notepad. "Good afternoon, sir. Welcome. What can I get for you today?" Her voice was steady, but she could feel her palms sweating. Obama looked up, his eyes kind yet sharp. "What do you recommend?" he asked. For a moment, Sarah hesitated, caught off guard by his calm demeanor. "The blueberry pancakes are a favorite," she said, managing a small smile. "I'll take those, then," he replied, adding, "and a coffee, black?" As she turned to leave, Obama added, "Thank you, Sarah." Her name rolled off his tongue with a familiarity that startled her. She glanced back, puzzled, but he was already gazing out the window. The rest of the cafe had come alive with quiet speculation, their curiosity palpable. Sarah tried to focus on her work, but her mind buzzed with questions. How did he know her name? Was it just a guess, or something more deliberate? As she delivered his order, Obama leaned in slightly. You seem like someone who's got a lot on her plate. No pun intended, he said, his tone soft but pointed. Sarah blinked, caught off guard by the observation. I'm fine, she replied quickly, but the words felt hollow. He nodded, not pressing further. Sometimes, we all carry more than we let on. Before Sarah could respond, the cafe door opened again, and two suited men entered, clearly Secret Service agents. One approached Obama, whispering something in his ear. He nodded, then turned back to Sarah. Take a moment to think about what you really want, Sarah, he said, his gaze steady. You've got more potential than you realize. The words hung in the air as he stood, leaving a generous tip beneath his empty coffee cup. As the door closed behind him, Sarah stood rooted in place, her mind racing. What had just happened? The cafe was quieter now, the lunchtime rush long over. Sarah stood at the counter, staring at the tip Obama had left, a crisp $100 bill tucked beneath a handwritten note. She unfolded the small piece of paper, her fingers trembling. You are stronger than you think. Keep going. The world needs people like you. The words struck her like a bolt of lightning. 4 years, Sarah had felt trapped, working endless shifts, putting her dreams on hold to support her ailing mother, and feeling invisible in the chaos of life. Yet here was a message, simple but profound, from someone who didn't know her struggles but somehow saw her. Her mind raced back to his gaze, the way he'd spoken her name with quiet certainty. Tears welled in her eyes, unbidden but unstoppable. She wiped them quickly, embarrassed, but the room was empty save for Marco, who was wiping down tables. Sarah, he called softly, noticing her expression. She looked up, clutching the note tightly. I think it's time I stop hiding, she whispered, more to herself than to him. A sense of resolve surged through her, a clarity she hadn't felt in years. This moment wasn't just about a message from a former president. It was about believing in herself again. The cafe doors swung open, letting in a burst of evening air. Sarah stepped outside, the note still folded carefully in her pocket. The streets glistened with the remnants of a light rain, and the city hummed with its usual rhythm. But something felt different, lighter, like a veil had been lifted. She found herself walking toward the bookstore she passed every day on her way to work. It was closed now, but through the glass, she could see the rows of journals lined neatly on the shelves. A thought bloomed. Maybe it was time to write again, to give her words a place outside her head. The next morning, Sarah brought in fresh pastries for the staff, something she hadn't done in years. Marco noticed immediately. What's the occasion? He teased, a knowing grin on his face. Just felt like it, she said, smiling back. As the day wore on, Sarah caught herself humming while pouring coffee, her mind brimming with possibilities. The cafe still buzzed with orders and chatter, but it no longer felt like a dead end. Years later, when her debut novel hit shelves, Sarah tucked a copy into an envelope. The address was simple, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Some words she realized were worth sending back.